You click on this video because you feel stuck. You work 10 plus hours every day, but your business barely moves. Every day is Groundhog Day. Weeks upon weeks of working hard, performing way below potential, with the occasional brilliant day when a deadline looms. I've trained 400 founders from 6 to 9 figures, and I've audited 50 of my last coaching calls line by line to find the 4 signs that predict whether you're going to stay stuck in Groundhog Day. I'm going to show you the exact 4 signs and how to get out of it fast. And at the end, I'll give you the one equation of all 4 signs collapse into. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's go. Firstly, define what stuck actually means, because most founders diagnose it wrong. Being stuck means you're not growing month on month. And you may be tempted to think that there's something external to you that keeps you stuck. Maybe it's the market, maybe it's the offer, maybe it's the team. Typically, it isn't. The reason is always very simple. You're just not doing the most important thing consistently. Because at every level of business, there's one task that matters more than everything else combined. One thing that would make everything else easier or irrelevant. At 6 figures, it's typically consistent client acquisition. Maybe it's outreach, content, or follow-up. At 7 figures, it's typically full business systematization and maybe a few key hires. At 8 figures, it's typically a new direction, maybe hiring the CEO who replaces you. The level changes, but the structure never does. There's always one bottleneck that if you topple it, the business will change shape overnight, immediately. That's just how businesses work. And if you're stuck, it means that you're not toppling the bottleneck. Nothing more, nothing else. Because the real question is, why can smart, proven founders topple a task they can't describe in one sentence? Because you know what the bottleneck in your business is. And there are 4 reasons. I'm going to walk them in order so you can understand which one is keeping you stuck, so you can finally reward that. Sign number 1, reason number 1 is you don't believe you can topple it. See, have you ever stared at your business for months, knowing something has to change? You just don't know what it is. Meanwhile, a friend, a mentor, a coach looks at it for 5 minutes and immediately names the constraint and the way forward. That's not an intelligence gap, but a belief gap. That's reason number 1. Because somewhere along the way, your brain decided you were not ready to topple the bottleneck. And our belief system works as a filter. In this specific case, it filters out the constraint. For example, your constraint is hiring a key position, but your belief system subconsciously flags that as too hard or impossible for you because you've never done it before. So it doesn't even register on your to-do list. It feels unthinkable, so you cannot think about it. Imagine you need to raise your prices, but you're scared about the value that you deliver. Well, you won't even consider that move. It's not that you're not rejecting it, is that you've lost the ability to see it as a real possibility. Your map of what's possible collapsed around the discomfort, and the map redrew itself with the hard road deleted. And the test is simple. When someone names your bottleneck out loud, what do you think? If what you think is, I'd love to do it, but that's an instant case of why you are subconsciously sabotaging that action. If you don't believe the bottleneck will topple if you work on it, you won't even chase it. Now, some of you actually believe you can topple it. You know it can be done, but you still don't do it. And that is sign number 2. Even if you know what it is, you're not prioritizing it. And there's a scene that pains me, and I've watched it hundreds, maybe thousands of times with clients and myself, knowing exactly what to do, believing we can do it, and at the end of the day, we still don't do it. And we can spend 10 hours at the desk every single day, and maybe 1 or 2 actually touch the bottleneck. The rest is productive feeling work orbiting the one task that matters. Maybe it's reorganizing the funnel, maybe it's changing the outreach script, maybe it's refining the offer, answering everything in the inbox. That's the trap. You're not sitting idle. We are doing stuff, but that motion is useless because the bottleneck, the outreach, the hire, the fire still isn't addressed. That's what failed prioritization actually looks like. Check your last couple weeks. How many days did the bottleneck, the thing you know you need to do to graduate to the next level, get your first and best hours? The honest answer is probably 0, because you are not ready yet to tackle it. And this is the hardest thing, because if you believe you can do it and you still put it at the top of the list, but it still doesn't happen, it means there's a deeper problem at play. Something you might be tempted to blame your discipline or your focus, but really is a hardware problem. Sign number 3 is that you can't execute on it. And let me know if this sounds familiar. So let's say you plan your week. On Monday, you feel ready to attack the bottleneck, and you do it. And it works. Then Tuesday, you try again, but just a little less. And by Wednesday, it slipped. You're just not doing it anymore. By the weekend, you've realized you've done 10, maybe 20% of the work that you said was needed. So you regroup, you plan ahead again. Next Monday, you have a fresh start. And by Wednesday again, you are sleeping again. This is what kills more businesses than competitors ever would. You've been told that this is a discipline problem or a character problem. No, it's not. Because notice what happens in your body when the task that you know you need to do, the bottleneck, comes up. You feel irritated, defensive. You have like a surge in anxiety. Maybe you snap at yourself or at your team. You have strong emotions, wildly out of proportion to a task that might take a few minutes. That's not a character flaw. That is a fried nervous system holding a level of friction and stress that he's not ready to hold. So the friction of the task, both physiological and psychological, is bigger than your capacity. Your brain and nervous system are under-trained for that specific load. So when your system is dysregulated, you didn't sleep that well, or you didn't take care of your nutrition, whatever, you are not in the right conditions to deal with that stress. So discomfort spikes and your brain routes around it every time, automatically. And that is not a decision you make, it's an automatic reflex. And those emotions you feel are a tell. It's a nervous system that has no spare capacity running a company anyway. And that's why you might not be able to topple the bottleneck. Because if the most important task in your business reliably produces the strongest emotions, guess what happens? You won't be consistent. Every single day will be a fight against yourself, and you will eventually quit. And there's a fourth reason. Because even when founders push through all of these 3 that we just discussed, there's an even more expensive of the 4, which is not learning fast enough. One of the biggest problems of business is that the environment in which we perform is changing all the time. So even if we know what to do, we believe we can do it, we consistently do it, you might not be working on the most important thing, even if you think you are. Because you're moving, you're working, things are happening, but somehow, since the environment changes, you still are mismatched, misaligned with what should be done. And you run the play, you get the result, and you run the same play again, meaning you're not learning from your execution. So when something changes, you're just not even register it. And I'm a perfect example of this. I've produced 500 long-form videos and 2,000 short-form videos for a YouTube channel, only to get 4,000 followers. Why? Because to me, doing YouTube videos was more like a chore. And since it was a chore, I was not having fun doing them, and I was not learning, I was not analyzing the data, I was not watching all the YouTube channels. I just published it based on what I thought needed to happen. There was not feedback loop. And without feedback loops, I was not learning. And this is why I call this the most expensive of the 4 signs. Because you can work your ass off and still get nowhere if you're not learning, if you're not adapting, if you're not getting better. And it happened to me, and I guarantee that it's happening to you in some parts of your life. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's outreach, maybe it's your relationships. Now, these 4 signs look like 4 different problems. You know, it might be a belief gap, a priorities gap, a consistency gap, a learning gap, but they're not separate. They're 4 symptoms under one law. And once you see it, you can't see it. Every founder gets stuck when the capacity to execute on the bottleneck is lower than the energy the bottleneck demands. That's it. That's the whole problem. Let's use an example. Say toppling the bottleneck outreach demands 100 units of capacity, but you have limiting beliefs, a lack of skills, bad behaviors that limit your capacity to execute at 20. So your brain does the math and routes you to a cheaper option every single day on autopilot. So that belief gap, that prioritization gap, that consistency gap, that learning gap, they're all downstream of one deficit. You don't have enough capacity for the size of the task in front of you. This doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. No, it means your capacity is untrained. And untrained means trainable. Every sign is a trained pattern running on wiring you never chose. And everything you've tried against it typically is courses, productivity systems, 75 hard challenges, fresh thoughts. They give you more to know, but less to do. And the problem is not knowing. The problem is that you don't have the capacity to execute. But as I said, the good news is that capacity is trainable. Every elite athlete, every elite performer, every elite founder who's actually broken through, who consistently breaks through, trains capacity on purpose. Daily reps measured with a number that moves so you can see your own performance shifting. As I like to say, nobody is born ready to win an Olympic medal, if you know what I mean. All athletes are trained for greatness. That's what I do for founders. And we do it with science and data. And the shift shows up on a dashboard within days. In fact, within 30 days, you can expect to triple your daily output on the high leverage task you are currently avoiding, which is going to change your business faster than anything else you try. Because the only way to succeed and avoid getting stuck is to consistently identifying and toppling the bottleneck in front of you. So if you know what your bottleneck is, and I guarantee you know it, understand that you must train your capacity to topple it. I wrote something called the Neuroexecution Protocol, which 400 founders have used to rewire their brains for consistent execution on the high leverage work they typically avoid. It's free, it's below this video. Read it, understand how your brain works, and start making the right changes for you to finally break through. See you in the next video.